In this video, we will build an Express server with Node.js that will give us a backend we can use to run search queries against. When a user types into the form in the front end, it will fire off a request to the server with a query parameter that contains the text the user is trying to search. It's the server's job to take that query and filter the results and send them back to the client. Express.js is a very popular tool for building REST APIs with JavaScript. In this demo, we will use it to create a simple API endpoint that will make our server accessible on the internet via HTTP. Let's go ahead and open up the index.js file, and at the top of it, we will import Express.js as well as CORS. CORS stands for Cross-Origin Resource Sharing, and we need to enable it here in order for our front-end application to make requests to the server from a different URL. It's a web security feature we don't need to know much about right now, but there's a link to a 100-second video about it if you want to learn more. In Express, we can opt into different features like CORS by using middleware. We do that by calling app.use, and we'll also use middleware called Express.json that will automatically parse any JSON that is sent to the server. Now, one thing we don't have at this point is interesting data, but one easy way to create fake data is with a library called Chance. Let's go ahead and import Chance and instantiate it, then create an array with 250 items in it that we can map to some other data. First, I'm going to use a cool little trick here to convert this array into an array of integers that go from 0 to x. By wrapping the array in brackets and then using the spread syntax on its keys, we create a new array based on the index of the original. It'd be a lot easier if JavaScript supported ranges out of the box, but this works as well. Once we have that array, we can then use the map function to map it to an array of random values. We'll return an object that contains the ID, and then we can add additional randomly generated properties like an animal with chance.animal. The end result of this code is an array with 250 objects in it, each one with a bunch of random animal information. This is the data that the user will search through on the client side in the next video. But first, to make that data accessible, we'll need to create an HTTP endpoint. In Express, we can create a simple GET endpoint using app.get. It takes an argument for the actual URL path, which could be something like animals, but we'll just leave it blank here since we only have one endpoint in the app. And then as a second argument, it takes a callback that will run some code on the server anytime somebody visits that URL. A URL can contain extra data in it called query parameters separated by a question mark. In this demo, we'll pass in a parameter called Q that represents the text that the user is trying to search. When building a search feature, you generally want everything to be lowercase so it's case insensitive, and then we'll also use OR here to provide an empty string as the default value. And now what we want to do is take that text and filter out the array of animals to only the names that have that text in them. In JavaScript, we can do that with the array filter function, which will loop over each animal in the array and then see if it passes a certain test. In this case, we want to see if the animal type to lowercase includes the search query. The value of results will be a new array that's filtered to only the animals that have that text pattern in them. The final thing we'll need to do in this endpoint is send that data back down to the front-end application, and we do that with response.send. Our server is almost complete. There's just one last thing we need to do. We need to start it up on a specific port. We do that by calling app.listen, and in this case, we'll specify the port of 8080. When it fires up, we'll console log listening on localhost 8080. Now we're ready to test it out. From the terminal, inside the server directory, go ahead and run node followed by a period, or node index.js. Now, go ahead and open up a new browser tab and navigate to localhost 8080. You should get back the entire list of animals. But if you then type a question mark with Q equals some kind of text value, you should get a response that's filtered by that search term. We now have a backend server up and running. In the next video, we'll look at how we can interact with it from our front-end React application.